You won approximately 4% of the primary vote in New Hampshire, 2% in South Carolina, and 3% in Michigan. Right now, we're on the eve of Super Tuesday. What does a win on Super Tuesday look like for you?
You know, I don't have the money. I don't have the media exposure. I don't have the kinds of things that allow the majority of the American people even to know that I exist. What I do have, however, is excitement among the people who do hear me. What I do have is something which I feel in my heart and which is um, uh, obvious given the polls. You know, if you poll the American people, we're a little left of center. So, what I'm talking about is important and is true, and I'm not going to let the numbers on Super Tuesday or in any other day stop me as long as we have the resources that are necessary to continue. And people can go to Marianne2024.com and look at all of the issues that I talk about. Establishing a Department of Peace, repudiating America's forever war machine, an economic U-turn, and decide for themselves and hopefully support the campaign. You
Let's
know,
dive in.
30,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
39%, 39% of Americans now report that they regularly skip meals in order to pay their rent. Over half of America's renters cannot afford the rent. We now have the highest poverty rate of any advanced democracy. We're the only advanced democracy that doesn't have universal health care and tuition-free college and tech school. People's lives are falling apart. For 20% of Americans, the economy is doing well, and that's certainly to be celebrated. But that 20% are surrounded by a vast sea of economic despair. America can do so much better. We have swerved from our moral center, and that moral center our economic system is devoid of that moral center. It's an unfettered vulture form of capitalism rather than any kind of righteous or ethically based capitalism that now has a grip of our society. You know, Adam Smith, who was the main articulator of free market capitalism, said it cannot exist outside an ethical context. But a form of capitalism that is not based within an ethical context, where short-term profit maximization of these huge corporate entities is placed before the safety and the health and the well-being of the American people. That's the order of the day. And we now have, particularly since the Citizens United decision, we have a government that enables that. The government should be advocating for a proper balance between individual liberty, including economic liberty, and the common good. Today, so many resources have been placed into the hands of the private sector that we have had a $50 trillion transfer of wealth from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. You know, I'm old enough to remember. In the 1970s, the average American couple could afford a house and could afford a car and could afford a yearly vacation and could afford for one parent to stay home if they wanted to, and they could afford to send their kids to college, could support a family of four. That was a thriving middle class. That sounds today like fairy tale to a younger generation who do not look forward in their lives and think, well, I have a guarantee, or even near a guarantee that that will be my reality someday. The middle class has collapsed in America, and you cannot have a thriving democracy where you do not have a thriving middle class. This is scandalous. This is a critical problem, and the American people, I think, are ready to change it. The problem is we have a sclerotic political system that acts like a lid that's kept on top of the expression of the will of the American people, and that's why I'm running.